So, good evening, everybody. I welcome you all to the second lecture of our ongoing series where we discuss the editorial from Hindu as well as the Indian Express. This editorial was written in the Hindu newspaper on 19th September 2022 when our Prime Minister was on a SCO visit to Uzbekistan where the SCO meeting was taking place. So now this editorial becomes important for us because it highlights what are India's concerns regarding the SCO, what is the role of Quad when we are talking about SCO, how Indo-Pacific relationship comes into play, all those things. So more or less, this editorial is slightly different from the editorial we discussed yesterday. In the last editorial, we focused on, the problems as well as the solutions part to deal with environmental problems. But in this editorial, we'll be focusing on what are the India's major concerns that you can use in your answer writing. Along with that, this editorial becomes important from your prelims point of view, where I've highlighted some of the one-liners which can help you solve questions that can come in your prelims exam, UPSC prelims, or CDS exam or NDA exam. So stay in touch, keep following us. We'll be coming up with these kind of editorial on a regular basis. So without getting delayed, let's get started with this one. So it starts with the point that era of war is over on PM Modi Putin meeting. So as you all know, this statement became very popular. Even the French president, he also stated what Prime Minister Modi told Putin, that this era, the era we are living in, is not a era of war, and the war going on between Russia and Ukraine should be ended. He indirectly meant to say that the war should be ended between Ukraine and Russia, and through dialogue, through diplomacy, things should be settled down. Now, as we move ahead, as you can see, the first line, compared to its relatively low key past, the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Council of Heads of State in Samarkand took place in the crosshairs of international attention. So, as you know, this SCO meeting took place in Uzbekistan. And where exactly in Uzbekistan? Uzbekistan in Samarkand. And all the world media's attention was on this meeting because this was the very first time our Prime Minister was meeting the Chinese counterpart, that is Xi Jinping, and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, after almost you can say couple of years, because during the COVID-19 they already met virtually but never had a physical meeting. So this is the first time, and also this meeting is going on amidst the war that is taking place between Russia and Ukraine. So that is why it becomes very important from the global perspective as well. So next line as we move ahead, apart from SCO's new agreement on regional engagement, so this meeting primarily focused on regional engagement and discussions among 8 members, including 4 Central Asian states. So before going ahead, let me tell you what are the states or what are the countries that are part of Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So the first country is India, China, Pakistan, Russia, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan. So out of the 4 ancient countries, there are 4 Central Asian countries as well. So the 4 Central Asian countries are Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. So the first priority that was discussed in this meeting was about regional engagement, that all the players should be regionally engaged for trade, commerce, road and infrastructure development, likewise, different things. As we move ahead, another focus of this meeting at Uzbekistan was, in the coming year, Iran is going to be inducted as a permanent member. So the focus was also on that. So focused on inducting Iran as a member, broadening the SCO dialogue partners to West and South Asia. Along with that, the members of the South Asian Cooperation Organization are also focusing on adding more partners in this group, basically who come from western part of this world, that is Western countries, as well as South Asian countries like Vietnam, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, likewise. And on trade, tourism, counterterrorism in the region. So along with regional engagement, you can use this term, you can use this terminologies while you write this answer. So along with regional engagement, the focus was on Iran's induction. Along with that, trade and tourism boost. trade and tourism, and finally fifth one was counter-terrorism. So these things were the major focus of this Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting that held in Uzbekistan, Samarkand. So always remember Samarkand because this could be asked directly in exam. Next is, however, more focus was on the bilateral meeting on the sidelines, as this was the first such major conference that Russian President Vladimir Putin attended since the Ukraine war. So again, along with the combined meeting of this group, there was also a focus on the bilateral meetings on the sidelines that were taking place, that is between India, Russia, India, China, Russia, China. But however, only the bilateral meeting between India and Russia could take place. India and Russia could take place. Not even India, Pakistan could meet, even though Pakistan has replaced its prime minister. Now we all know Shahbaz Sharif is the prime minister of Pakistan, replacing Imran Khan. But India-Pakistan meeting also couldn't take place. So it's written here, as you can see, since the Ukraine war, as well as a part of the first visit abroad by Chinese President Xi Jinping since the COVID-19 pandemic and Taiwan tension. So this is the first time Xi Jinping is visiting a foreign country, is on a foreign visit post COVID-19 pandemic and the Taiwan tension that is going on. As you all know, the US Speaker Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan and there was huge tensions going on. Chinese were, throwing all kinds of missiles on the territory, on the surrounding territory of Thailand. So tensions were going on, and since then, this is the first time Chinese President Xi Jinping is visiting some other country. This was the first time he came face to face with Pakistan Prime Minister. So he came face to face with Pakistan Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif. And speculation was rife that he would hold meeting with India's adversaries. So there was speculation that Chinese President Xi Jinping would hold meeting with India's adversaries. Adversary as in India's enemy or India's not so friendly country. So it's saying that China was supposed to meet Pakistan, but it did not happen actually. While the meeting with Sharif or Mr. Xi did not materialize, that means no meeting was taken place, bilateral meeting. Western capital focused on its Putin meeting. So Chinese president met Vladimir Putin in this meeting. Mr. Modi's opening comment to Mr. Putin that era of war has ended. So, when Modi also met Putin, this was the first statement that he said that, okay, Mr. Putin, this is not an era of war. You should, solve this problem through diplomacy, dialogue and all those things. Has been read as a domination of Russia's war on Ukraine. However, it would be wrong to read Mr. Modi's engagement with Mr. Putin as any kind of public shaming. So many people are saying that it's a kind of public shaming that Modi is doing, but it's not actually. But rather, it's an expression of concern that he's concerned about the stability of the region, stability of the area around, Ukraine and Russia. So he's concerned about that, and that's the reason why he said, okay, this is not the era of conflict. Something that Mr. Putin said he understand, and even Mr. Putin admitted that fact that, okay, we know, but we even have our own implication, as in, Ukraine is not listening to our demands, or Western countries are still funding the war likewise. A day before, Mr. Putin had also said to Mr. Xi that he understood China's concern, indicating Russia's realization of the need to effect a ceasefire and dialogue. And he also says that even he brought the question of Mr. Xi Jinping, that, okay, he brought that thing into the picture about the tensions going on between India and China on the border issues, as you all know. So he pointed out this thing and indicated that Russia realized that, and a ceasefire and dialogue should be there. So he retaliated on the same lines, saying that, okay, in your place also there is certain kind of tensions going on that should also be solved through ceasefire and dialogue. That is what he's trying to say. Anyway, that's not important. As we move ahead, India now comes to prominence as a chair of SCO. So as you all know, in the year 2023, India is chairing the G20 summit as well as the SCO summit, and is making preparations for the next year SCO summit ahead of G20 summit in New Delhi. So they will be hosting the SCO summit ahead, means before the G20 summit takes place in New Delhi. India needs to ensure the participation of all SCO members, including China, Pakistan, despite the tension, which will entail some diplomatic elbow grease by External Minister S. Jaishankar in the next few months, beginning this week at UNGA. So India is trying to ensure that all the countries, including Pakistan, participates in this SCO summit that is going to take place in India. India's pitch to the SCO for connectivity with the Eurasian region hinges on its development of Chabahar through Iran and traversing US sanctions. So one of the India's major concerns that I have also written it down in the point is that India is looking for the development of Chabahar port so that it can get an access to the Central Asian country, even though US has enforced certain kind of sanctions on them, and in order to don't come under the miss out on the those sanctions, India is trying out different ways while still competing with China's Pakistan backed transit routes through Gwadar. And there is another problem there is that China has already built a port in Gwadar in Pakistan. So India has to counterplay all those things through diplomatically, through dialogue, and then make a way through Central Asia where it can ensure its trade happening there. Development of the region is happening there by funding some projects and likewise. On terrorism, India will have to ensure SCO walks the talk on building new consolidated list of terrorist groups. So India's main focus has always been counter-terrorism, and this time it has focused on forming a certain kind of list that mentions about different terrorist organizations. That means India is trying to lay emphasis on identifying and highlighting the major terrorist groups in the Asian countries so that necessary steps could be taken against them and counter them efficiently. An area where it is frequently thwarted by China. As you all know, China always tries to move away from the fact that or doesn't recognize this thing that the terrorism is actually being sponsored by Pakistan or terrorism actually coming from Pakistan. Meanwhile, New Delhi will also have to balance its ties with Western partners in the Quad and other grouping reassured, especially as the polarization between the US EU coalition and the Russia-China led combined continues to grow. So now another problem or another concern for India is that India has to balance out its relation with the Quad countries as well, because you cannot be fully inclined towards SCO or fully inclined towards the Quad that comprise that comprise USA, Japan, India, all these countries. So India have to take a balanced stand and then decide how it's going to deal with that. Australia is also a part of the Quad. So yeah, these four countries, they have to balance it out. India has to balance it out. So some of the concerns that I have marked down from this SCO summit, which are mentioned in this article, is that you can use this thing in your mains answer writing, like what are the major concerns related to SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organization. So first problem is that ensure partnership of all SCO members in 2023 summit. So the immediate concern is that all SCO members participate, that is including Pakistan, in the 2023 summit that's going to take place in India. Second is connecting with Eurasian region through Chabahar port despite US sanctions. So India also wants to connect to Eurasian region through Chabahar port, and even the US sanctions are there, save itself from those sanctions. India wants that port to be developed, which will help in boosting its trade and commerce. Next is building a list. So basically it's talking about counter-terrorism, where a list would be published that highlights, these are the terrorist organization, and now the steps has to be taken to counter those organization. And fourth point of India's concern is the balancing ties between Western partners in Quad, and especially after a difference between US, EU and Russia-China coalition. So now Russia-China coalition depicts the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, SCO, and USA-EU group is basically related to your G20, or to be precise, you can say it's related to Quad. So India needs to balance it out that we cannot be inclined towards one of the organization. We have to take a central stance and keep our interests in mind, or keep our priorities in head, and then act accordingly. We cannot just depend on one side and ignore the other side. So these are the major concerns for India. So you can just short it down and write it. So I've written it as short as I could, so you can use it in your mains answer when you write. So now we come down to some of the prelims centric data that you can use for your exam. So what is SCO? SCO is an Eurasian Economic, Political and Security Organization. Security Intergovernmental Organization. The headquarters of SCO is in Beijing, China, and it was founded in the year 2001. I've already told you who are the members. Just remember the Central Asian members are Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. SCO charter was signed at St. Petersburg in the year 2002. Official language, very, very important. It becomes, because India, Hindi is not an official language. Only Russian and Chinese are the official languages. Along with this, SCO has two permanent bodies. So what are those permanent bodies? One is your SCO Secretariat, which is based in Beijing again, and one is RATS. RATS is the basically anti-terrorism squad or anti-terrorism organization to counter terrorism. So this organization's headquarters is in Tashkent in Uzbekistan. Don't get confused. The RATS headquarters is in Uzbekistan, Tashkent, but the SCO meeting was held at this place called Samarkand in Uzbekistan. I hope you are clear. Very, very important. This year's meeting of 2002 took place in Uzbekistan at an area at a state called Samarkand, and the RATS head office is in Uzbekistan. So don't get confused with that. Next is highlights of the SCO summit this time. As I've already mentioned to you, Russia-Putin meeting, so bilateral meetings was one of the key highlights of this SCO meeting, that is between Russia and India, and Putin is meeting any of his counterpart or having a bilateral meeting for the first time since the Ukraine war, as well as bilateral meeting between China and Pakistan, which did not materialize or did not take place. And Chinese President Xi Jinping is also meeting or having a bilateral meeting post COVID-19, and as well as since the Taiwan tension has started. Next is new agreement on regional engagement was another highlight, as I told you, and Iran's induction as a permanent member. And last but not the least, SCO chair for 2023 would be India after the G20 summit. So first SCO summit would be taking place, and after that G20 summit would be taking place. This is all from our side. I hope you like our series. Please keep watching and do subscribing. Do consider subscribing to our channel because we publish all these kinds of videos every day. So till then, thank you and have a nice day.